number 8. Okay, number 8. The GC's husband leaves him for an interior designer. The enraged GC bricks up the door to the interior designer's love nest, trapping them inside. The police are called in, arrest the GC for kidnapping. The GC clearly is suddenly off the project. Which of the following is important? So we've taken a little melodramatic twist here, and I've very particularly made it sort of ridiculous in order to kind of make the point that we were talking about earlier, and that is that often the questions will have a whole lot of sort of red herrings in them. They'll have a whole lot of kind of scenarios that are taking you in the wrong direction. The only thing that's important here, the only part of this question that you need to focus on is that the GC is off the project. Once you realize that that's really what's happening, so it's the middle of the project and the GC is suddenly gone. Doesn't matter why, doesn't matter whatever, the GC is suddenly gone. What's going to happen next? So let's look at our answers. A is professional liability insurance is going to be important. B, GL insurance is going to be important. C, the G702 is going to be important. And D, the performance bond is going to be important. Professional liability insurance is your insurance. It's the architect's insurance. It's often called errors and omissions. The PL is going to be very important whenever there's anything that you have done that's negligent or accidental, and you've made a mistake. Maybe it's a big mistake, maybe it's a little mistake, but something happened that shouldn't have happened and somebody's got to pay for fixing it up. Well, that's your professional liability insurance, your errors and omissions. In this case, the GC leaving the project suddenly, and it doesn't really have anything to do with that. So it's definitely not A. B is GL insurance, which is general liability insurance. Well, general liability insurance is something that essentially every business has. So the architecture firm you work with has a GL insurance. So does the restaurant down the block, so does the cleaners. Everybody has general liability insurance. And if somebody walks into your office, a client walks into your office and trips on the rug and falls down and breaks their leg, and they sue you, it's your GL insurance, that's your general liability insurance that's going to pay them off. It's not your professional liability, because that's only about the specifics of being an architect doing a design. So neither of those are really applicable. So it's not A, it's not B. Well, how about C? G702. G702 happens to be the AIA form for payout requests. So that's something that's very important. It's something that you will deal with often, usually on a monthly basis. The contractor will do a pencil payout request where you'll then review that information, either say, yes, this looks good, or it doesn't. Presumably it looks good. They then formalize that information. It becomes something, you sign it, they sign it. It then goes to the owner, to the title company, or somebody who's then going to pay out that month's the amount of money that the general contractor needs at that point. And so it's a very important thing, and clearly the G702s would get all screwed up if the contractor was suddenly off the project and you had to get a new contractor, but not really the most important thing to be thinking about at that point. So the answer clearly is performance bond. And performance bond is this idea that it's essentially a kind of insurance, and it's an insurance for the owner, for the client. What they're doing when they get a performance bond is they're saying, okay, I have the low bid, I've chosen the bidder, we have a contractor, we're moving forward, and my only worry is, what happens if this guy can't fulfill the promise that they've made by being selected as the winning bidder? What happens if something takes them away from the project? And it's obviously, let's say a contractor gets 50% of the way through a project, and then for whatever reason, maybe they get arrested for kidnapping, or maybe it's something completely more reasonable. but suddenly they're gone from the project. And so they're 50% of the way through. The owner has to find a new contractor to finish off the rest. Is that new contractor going to cost to do the last 50%, just 50% of the overall cost that was already started? Well, no. Obviously, it's going to be much more expensive. The new contractor is going to have to mobilize. They're not going to know exactly where the work stopped and started. They're going to have to kind of go back and redo pieces that didn't get finished enough. So typically, that way, an example like that, it might be more like 75% of the cost, which means there's an extra 25% of cost that's going to happen. That's a big worry. So what does the owner do? They get a performance bond. It's an insurance for stopping that to happen. What happens is if the contractor leaves the project, then this particular insurance company would come in and pay for the new contractor to take over the project and would pay the difference between the original contract and this what it takes to get the second contractor going. So clearly the insurance companies are only going to give performance bonds to contractors that they deem sort of a reasonable bet. They're not going to, if you just have somebody off the street, they're not going to give you a performance bond, or they're going to charge you a whole lot of money for it. And the other kind of interesting thing is often the contractors will put the performance bonds into their line items, into their estimates and their bids, but only if they've been asked to. But they'll put them into their bids as a line item, and the reason for that is that often owners just don't want to pay for it out of pocket. They want it to go into their loan, and so that's a way of making that happen.
Okay, let's see here. So, yeah, pretty much everybody got this one right.
Yeah, that should be one that's pretty straightforward. Performance bond is definitely something that might show up.
I have to say that this is, I think, our first mock exam question that has been tweeted. Somebody tweeted, let's see who it was, Jennifer at Archography, I guess, at Archography, tweeted this picture to us, which is pretty awesome. So
that's great.
Nice question writing, Mike.
There we go. All right.